Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. Dog won't leave church until pastor follows him to strange house. Mysterious dog. He sneaked into the church unseen, but when he was noticed, the pastor did all he could to get him out. It was futile. The dog was there for more reasons than he was. He sat quietly in front of the congregation. His head was tilted down, his sights set on something ahead. He appeared to be possessed. What precisely was he looking at? The town was captivated by the mystery surrounding the church and the dog. The pastor. Pastor Gregory Melroy had been giving sermons at the Santa Maria Assunta Church for more than a decade. He'd seen all types of people pass in and out of his church doors, and he could name most of them. Pastor Melroy was a kind and devoted man who spent the majority of his days being in service to others. He provided sermons and confessions and helped out with numerous charity events and organizations around the town. As far as everyone knew, he was a real-life saint. Small town. The town of San Donaci was small. It was a place where everybody knew everybody. So when one small mystery happened to find its way into the church, superstition and rumors engulfed the town. When the dog first entered Pastor Melroy's church, he tried to lead him outside. He was a German shepherd, and he seemed old and very stubborn. Under pressure to start the sermon, he let the dog stay. Churchgoers laughed at the adorable dog, but there was nothing funny about this. Winning the church over. The dog was calm and quiet during church. He didn't bother anyone. Instead, he just sat down and hung his head, staring at the left side aisle of the churchgoers. He was so well behaved that when the service ended, people came up to pet him. Pastor Melroy did too. "You're not so bad, eh?" Pastor Melroy said, taking a liking to him. So when the dog kept showing up to the church again and again, Pastor Melroy was more than willing to let him stay. But he noticed something strange. Constant staring. He didn't think much of it at first, but when he saw the dog return to the exact same pointed position every day, he wondered what on earth he was so fixated on. He remembered hearing people whispering about the dog's strange behavior and joking that it was like he was looking at the dead. But standing at the altar behind the dog, he couldn't see any of this, so he looked at the church's security cameras to find out. What Pastor Melroy discovered left him speechless. Looking possessed. The motionless dog looked possessed, staring mindlessly into the congregation. At this stage, Pastor Melroy had formed a deep fondness of his furry, devoted churchgoer, and what he saw made him worry. Was the dog seeing something, or was he blind? The pastor knew the dog's owner wasn't at the church. No one had claimed him when he asked around, so he took it upon himself to bring the old dog to the vet. Maybe they could explain his strange behavior. Vet visit. The pastor brought the dog to the vet and told him why they were there. The vet soon determined that there was nothing wrong with his eyes. In fact, he was perfectly healthy. He sent the pastor and the dog on their way. But just before they left, the pastor spotted a peculiar note on the dog's form. The note stopped him in his tracks and had him scrambling for his pen. One step closer. He was microchipped. His name was Tommy. He was 12 years old. The pastor scribbled down the phone number and called it straight away. He tried 3 times, but there was no answer. Deflated, the pastor arrived back at church with Tommy. It was time to close up the church, but Tommy wouldn't leave. After the pastor struggled to get Tommy out, he waited at the door. He was waiting for Pastor Melroy. Into the dark. The pastor knew Tommy wanted something from him. He approached him, at which point Tommy got up and turned around. He stood for a moment, looking back to see if the pastor was following him. The pastor looked at him curiously. He knew he wanted him to follow, so he did. Little did he know, Tommy was leading him into something he wouldn't soon forget. Following behind. He followed Tommy around the empty, dark streets, passing lit-up houses and street lamps to the top of an old, dusty road. The house he was walking toward sat on top of a small hill. One dull light beamed from the bottom right window. Tommy sat outside the front door, waiting expectantly. And just like clockwork, the door opened. Tommy's story. Pastor Melroy couldn't deny that he was feeling a little uneasy, but he wanted to meet Tommy's owner. Did they know he went to church every day? But when she opened the door, it wasn't what the pastor expected. A friend of Tommy's owner opened the door. He'd never seen her before. After the pastor introduced himself, she told him Tommy's story. Mystery solved. Pastor Malroy found out that Tommy's owner had sadly passed away some time ago. His owner's name was Loki. She was a quiet woman who kept to herself, but one thing she was known for was taking in a number of stray dogs every now and again. Tommy was Loki's third dog to rescue, and the two created an incredible bond that she didn't experience with her other rescues. Finding Tommy. She found Tommy when he was 2 years old, abandoned in a field in a remote part of the countryside. He had no collar and no microchip. He was in a bad condition, so she immediately took him home. With her 2 other adopted rescues long gone, she was able to focus all her attention on Tommy. From then on, he was always by her side. He even sat outside the church entrance and waited for her whenever she went to Mass. Dog in mourning. When she passed away, her friend recalled how Tommy was so heartbroken that he followed her coffin into Pastor Malroy's church. Not one of the mourners had the heart to prevent him from entering the church, so instead they let him join them at the funeral service. The town mayor said that now all the locals want to adopt Tommy, and he quickly became everyone's dog, from the butcher to the baker. They all take care of him. Heartbroken dog. Loki's friend told Pastor Malroy that after Loki died, whenever the heartbroken dog heard the sound of church bells, she'd find him at the church, perhaps hoping his owner may again appear because it felt so familiar to go. Tommy would sit in front of the altar, facing the congregation. Priests would even descend into the aisles to give churchgoers the Eucharist so that old Tommy wouldn't be disturbed. Please spread the smiles by sharing these adorable best friends with your friends.